Welcome to the Somewhat Frank podcast, hosted by me, Frank Gruber, and joined by my friends and colleagues, Jen Consalvo and John Guidos. This podcast explores the latest trends and advancements in technology and business, including emerging startups and how they shape today while looking forward towards the future. We also enjoy testing new gadgets and products and sharing our findings too, along with our favorite pop culture picks like music, books, and what we're streaming. This podcast is produced in collaboration with our company, Established. Ready to dive in? Time to be somewhat frank. Welcome back to Somewhat Frank Podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, your host. Glad to be back. It's been a little bit of a pause there, but we've had a lot going on here at Somewhat Frank headquarters. Joined today by Johnny Good Times Guidos, Jen Consalvo, and Simon. Did you adopt the name The Machine, Khan? I love to
Yeah,
hear.
I keep changing it every week because I'm trying to find what makes me feel the best about myself.
Okay, good. The Machine. All right, so today we got a lot to talk about. We've got the 50 most disruptive companies according to CNBC, a lot of AI news. We've got VCs talking about smaller VC funds being better, so we'll talk about that. And then some news around the potential changes to the office happy hour. So, well, before we do that, let's jump around the horn really quick. We haven't got any updates from Rudy in a while. Jen, you're back. You're looking great. You feeling better? You went on a retreat. Tell us about it.
I did. I went on a meditation retreat. So went to Boone, North Carolina to the Art of Living Center for a full week. And it was a mix of a lot of meditation, some breakout sessions, different kinds of things. But God, was it just, really no phone, no technology for about a week. Walking up and down a mountain every day. So it felt every part of it just felt very refreshing, replenishing. I highly recommend it for everyone to do it at least once in life. I want to do it at least once a year. I would go back 3 times a year if I could, but once a year will probably be my plan. And then, I came home, went straight to a music festival, which really got the blood pumping again. We went to Boston Calling. And then this weekend had a bachelorette party. So, back in the full swing of things. But I will say that full week, it leaves such these lasting tools that stay, that help me stay calm and everything. So it was just really great experience. And bonus activity last week, I got to go to the unveiling of the new Barbara Bush stamp. The Postmaster General, he came and unveiled it with President George Bush in attendance, he and his wife Laura, and it was really kind of cool. And I've got a whole book of the little stamps now.
That's really cool. Sounds like you had a lot going on. That's really cool. I don't know if I could do the silent retreat part for those that know me. I don't know. Did anybody else on this podcast think they can sit in silence for that long?
No, I don't think so.
We were able to talk. So surprisingly, there are completely silent ones. He does one in December that's completely silent. But this one we could talk during meals and in between breaks. And there were actual breakout sessions where we could talk. It's just obviously the meditation. You're not going to talk through the meditations. And that's a large chunk of it. So it was more doable than I thought. I think you guys aren't giving yourselves enough credit. You can do it.
Yeah, also fun that you saw the Bushes again. It's that time of the season, right, where they're in town, so it's exciting to see them. I usually see them walking around either a port or sometimes on the beach, and that's always fun. All right, so going around the horn here, Johnny, what about you? You've had a lot going on. You got another trip around the sun. I know you're, battling today a little bit of a cold, so hopefully you can rally just for this pod. How you feeling and what's going on?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, thanks. It was my birthday, so Frank was in town coincidentally for an event, and so we had a nice chance to celebrate my birthday. So that was a lot of fun. And then my wife, got me a last minute trip to Key West. So we went down there and went to the Ernest Hemingway house and got scooters and zipped around the island and sat at the pool for a while. So it was really nice and relaxing. A lot of traveling, which is, never any fun, but it was good to get back down to Key West. A lot of good food too.
Yeah, and you got some good weather too. That's the key, right? So
Oh yeah.
love that place. It's fun. All right.
Did you do a food tour while you were down there?
No, but I felt like I ate as many shrimp tacos as you could possibly do in one weekend.
That might be why you're not feeling so great.
shrimp tacos and my tacos, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That's cool. I love that the shrimp down in Key West is some of the best you've ever can get. So that's really great. All right, Simon, what about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so not too much. I did finally just learn and record Never Going Back Again on the guitar by Fleetwood Mac, which I'm really happy about. It sounds sort of simple, but the picking pattern's crazy. So check out the TikTok. But I'm playing a
That's
lot
a
of
really
guitar.
hard song to play
It,
acoustically. So good job. I'll have to check it
thank you.
out.
There's a huge difference in learning how to play something and then also learning it well enough to play it in like one take and record it, which I like completely underestimated. So I'm playing a lot of guitar. I go to Europe in about 3 weeks and play some golf over there as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Awesome. I'll have to check it out. So we'll go look at that in a minute. It's probably blowing up already on the TikToks. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm super
So
excited.
give us a count. What are we at? Like 300, 400,000? I'm kidding.
Two
Uh,
million.
yeah. All right. So let's see. This like similar to you, Johnny. A lot of travel last couple weeks. That's like everyone's been traveling a little bit. So Chicago, Indy, Austin, for lots of different things. So GEC, the big global entrepreneurship Congress, was happening in Indianapolis, and there were thousands of people in town for that. It was really great to connect with a bunch of people. Got to celebrate your birthday, Johnny. My mom's birthday. We went to a Cubs game. Like it just feels like a blur of like a month of activities and fun. And then last week I was in Austin for the Tech Connect SBIR STTR spring conference, and a lot more folks that I don't get to see all the time in one place. So a lot going on there. Feel like I'm just like coming out of it today after basically being on point like for several weeks in a row. But really worth it, and was definitely a whirlwind. And looking forward to not traveling. See, I try not to leave the state of Maine in the summer, and that's already in effect. So trying not to leave until like I have to do a little bit of travel in August, and that's always a bummer. But trying not to leave until then. And I'm looking forward to some music too, some live music coming up here. The Mount Joy's coming to town, a bunch of others. So all right, so let's go around after round. So actually, before we get started, I want to talk about something that's not as heavy, but kind of is. I mean, so back in the day, we started something called Tech Cocktail, and it was really like bringing together people around happy hour. And I read recently in online that basically an article will share remote work and shifting like priorities and social fatigue and just people being you know somewhat frightened of getting together, I guess. Workplace culture changing. There's like this shift in habits of like we used to go out and have like happy hours after work on like Thursdays or whatever. And obviously also the decline in alcohol consumption is also playing into that. But you're seeing this like really cut in, and there's a whole article about it. And I just want to get your all take on it because it's interesting. It's different. It's a cultural shift over the last 20 years, I'd say. That now it's like it's not as like prevalent to do these like traditional alcohol-centric kind of bonding moments, I guess you could say, with team, which ultimately could be really good for like morale and keeping people all communicating and on the same page.
well, I think that you said a minute ago that working remotely has definitely impacted that because now you have to actually get ready to go out if you're going to meet up with people after work, versus just cramming away on your laptop at home. But it is interesting as well. I remember, and we should talk to Simon about this because back in my mid-20s, it was like Thursday night you'd go out after work, Friday night after work, Saturday, party at night, and then Sunday would be sports generally. And then you rinse and repeat every week. And now it seems like, there's a lot more people just doing their own thing, which is affecting a lot of things, right? Including alcohol sales and those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely.
But also mental health, right? I mean, going out and connecting with others is, I mean, especially when you're younger, that's where you build friendships, you meet people that you go on dates with. Like that's how you connect and you stay connected and build circles. And I don't know, that's always been, I think that alcohol is a critical component of that, maybe, but again, I think human connection is just so critical for society and for our own mental health.
You do.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Simon.
it's so interesting because I graduated college when COVID was still going on, and my first job was in person. But this job is great because we're remote and that provides a lot of benefits. But I do absolutely miss like me. I wish I could meet up with you guys and get a beer after work. And I'm just in my apartment so long that it does feel a little isolating sometimes. But there's also like clear advantages to it. So I don't know, both sides of the coin, I guess.
No, I feel you. I feel you too. Like I feel like that is the miss on like remote work and having everyone around the country is you can't, even if you aren't you're gonna, I mean, because there's so many non-alcoholic things too. Not just about the alcohol. It's about like getting together, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. Like let's hang out after work. So you're a little bit, so you're not talking necessarily all about work. You can kind of get a little bit of better sense of how everyone's doing and everything. And I think that's the part we're missing. And you can't, it is for us to all do that. It's going to be is an effort, right? So I think that's the hardest part. So we, try to do some things like more, creatively, like we do some things online that are creative, but again, it doesn't do the same level of connection. So definitely feel you. All right, so something to keep an eye on as companies try to rethink this kind of social rituals and different ways to do that. So if anyone's listening wants to pipe in, please do send us a note at somewhatfrank@est.us with more ideas or other things you've done as a company. We can bring them in on the next pod. All right. Now we're going to get a little heavier. We're talking about disruption. We've got the CNBC drop their 2025 Disruptor 50, which is a segment they put out every year and or for the last few years anyway. And basically it's a list of the top companies and, interestingly, interesting or not interestingly, AI dominates the list, but there are some interesting new ones. So AI has been on it for a little while, but it's really pushed out some of the other ones that weren't AI related. And Anduril's beating out OpenAI as the number one spot, which is kind of interesting. So kind of seeing this AI and defense kind of taking over a little bit over consumers. So that's kind of an interesting combo. And top five also included Databricks, Anthropic, and Canva. So that's, and collectively they're at about $800 billion. So a lot of great companies involved. Wanted to get your well, obviously other than the trend of like AI, wanted to see if anyone else has any thoughts on, what you've seen in those top 50.
Yeah, I think Anduril is a really, really interesting company right now because, I watched a 60 Minutes piece on them and it's hard not to hear what they're presenting in their platform, which is, more autonomous, kind of high tech, lower cost to entry, like military applications. It's hard not to watch them present that and then kind of think of our other military components being really antiquated and sort of not useless, but like clearly not going to be involved in the next, combat front, whatever. So anyway, Anduril is really fascinating. I think it's really cool that they're bringing like this major disruption to a pretty archaic kind of military acquisition industry.
Yeah, that's true. And they're I mean they've kind of come out of, I don't want to say come out of nowhere. They did, I mean they got some of their initial funds from like an SBIR, I believe, or a government contract of some sort. I think it was an SBIR, phase one. So they kind of come out of that and they've been around a little while, so they've kind of just like been growing and now they're kind of out in the forefront. I don't know, John, do you have anything else?
I was just interested to see or not see companies I knew. Things are moving so fast these days, and a lot of it seems to be like the glue that makes things happen behind the scenes. But I probably out of the 50 companies recognize maybe 10, something like that. So we're just moving so fast right now, and it is heavily AI weighted. And so I'm just trying to think of what else might be missing out there because AI is the buzzword right now, but there's a lot of good stuff going on. But just very much also surprised how I didn't recognize a ton of the companies on the list.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's moving fast. Jen?
Yeah. I think first of note, for those who don't know, the fact that Enduril's founder is Palmer Luckey, the founder of the Oculus.
Right.
So we've got some what is it? Once you're lucky, twice you're good.
Well, his name's
throw
Lucky.
over. What's that?
So, his name's Lucky, so there you go.
Right. That title is a throwover to our friend Sarah Lacey. She wrote the book. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and they really came on the radar. I mean, obviously we had been hearing about them for a long time, but for me, I think I knew that there was a big shift when they took over Microsoft's $22 billion government contract. to help fulfill something that Microsoft couldn't do, and that was for their integrated visual augmentation system. So thought that was interesting. I think I was excited to still see Canva in the list. I love Canva, female-founded company, female-led. Nice to see Aura on the list. Again, like mixing it up. Yep.
That's a ring. That's what we're doing. We're not just a hands.
Or the Aura ring.
Yeah.
Was still a little more than a little disappointed that we don't have more female-founded or female-led companies on the list. I think there are lots of very disruptive female-led companies out there that maybe just aren't in the particular spaces that they were really focusing on, or maybe haven't raised quite as much. And we all know those are challenges. It's challenging for even the most disruptive of female founders to bring in the same amounts. So that's something to still keep our eye on, because there were not many female-led companies. I mean, probably less than half a dozen in the list. So I'd love to see that shift a little bit in the coming years.
Yeah, and you bring a great point about funding, right? It's a very small percentage goes to women-led companies, even smaller goes to minority-led companies. We've talked about this before, but that is changing. We're trying to do things to make that change with established ventures, and others are as well, but it's still, there's quite a gap. So trying to, but again, doesn't mean that there's not companies that are not raising funding that are doing really well too. So these are like the most disruptive of the disruptive. And, there's a little bit of a I don't know, fascination with funding announcements. So I think that's the other thing that, if people put that out as like success if they've raised like a lot of money, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. It means that they've now got a lot of work to do. So I think that's the other thing to remember with some of these companies is like some of them could still fail. Like it can happen, right? So we'll see what happens with this list. And again, but it's just obviously interesting to see what folks are looking at as like especially and CNBC looking at as like the top companies. So that's why we brought it up. All right, we're gonna move along. Talk about one of the companies on the list, OpenAI. They're expanding into meetings, docs, cloud storage, and looking like they're gonna try to, basically be our operating system for everything you do. And I can already see that shift happening. I don't know if y'all are using it enough to realize like, wow, I'm like doing a lot in there that's like, now I would like to save it over here, and I've got to like cut and paste and move a bunch of stuff around to like make things work. And so I could see it totally becoming like similar to Drive, right? Like Google Drive or any of these other competitors, like as a place to put things and then create documents and SlideShare, to have everything in one place, I guess is my point. So definitely see that convergence. Are y'all doing that or not? Is it just me?
I can
No, I've
see
been
it's one of the tools that I've used from it a lot is their sharing capabilities, right? Like I look something up and then I want to be able to share that out, and they have nice links and make it easy and all that to do. I don't know yet, and I'm curious about everyone else. Google, I've used them for so long in so many different ways. Our company has used it, that I have a lot of trust. I have a lot of trust with Apple. I have trust with Amazon. I don't know if I have that amount of trust yet with OpenAI to go too deep too quickly in terms of like all the integrations. So I'd be curious what others think in just terms of that, like that trust to really get, once all the pipes get connected, boy, things can turn quickly.
Yeah, good point. John, did you say something?
No, nothing to add. Jen covered it pretty well. I mean, I work with it a lot, and it's kind of they're building in those efficiencies, right, where you're not going to have to copy and paste as much anymore, and it's a good step in the right direction, I think. Big convergence of some big companies.
Yep. All right, staying on the topic of AI, there's a new AI, first ever AI designed drug, and it's a startup company called InSilico, I believe. InSilico Medicine developed a drug that's for pulmonary fibrosis. And so, I mean, fully created using AI from, target discovery to actual molecular design. So this is kind of crazy. Like if you could imagine like all of a sudden AI is now just making all these potions for us to like cure all of our ailments, that's pretty cool actually. As long as they're not poison.
I think the AI applications in like medicine and healthcare are some of the most exciting too, because you kind of, in a lot of ways, you sort of circumvent the more ethical questions posed by implementing AI in other areas. But with medicine, it's great because it's often like, I believe it was a couple of years ago, Google's Alpha Lab, one of those two, he won Nobel Peace Prize for using AI to map protein structures. And it's something that's just insanely time consuming, like a lot of things in medicine. So I'm really excited about this. I can't wait till the day I can have a cyber body and metal bones.
Then you will be the machine.
Yeah, I'll be an actual machine.
I see where you're going with this. All right. Any other thoughts, or should we move on?
Well, it's interesting. I was just trying to do a little bit of research on it, and there are the companies that are sort of AI first in this space, and then the others who are trying to incorporate it into, these are the behemoths, right, of the drug industry. So it'll be interesting to see just how quickly all these companies are able to leverage it to its fullest capacity. In many different ways. Like, it's not just like this was they did the target discovery to the molecule design. But I was also reading they can use it now to better create trials to find the right participants, literally every step of the way. And like you said, Simon, like once you get like this full stack, right? How it's impacting every piece of it. How quickly can we shrink these timelines? It's going to be just incredible. And how personalized can it be? Because they're going to just have so much data to work with. And that's where, yeah, it's mind blowing. And it's really, for the first time ever, like, will we see in the next 5 years, 10 years, major leaps in finding cures? That's what I would hope.
Yeah.
And hope politics and money don't get in the way of that.
Yeah, I know and this is one of my complaints, but the time it takes to go through all the proper channels and testing and like clinical trials and all that stuff, it's really important. But I think there's a lot of frustration at the lack of speed in which all of these kind of new drugs and stuff are being developed, because obviously we want them now. So yeah, hopefully this speeds up that whole process in a safe way.
Yeah, I just had a quick full circle moment because we were talking about, I went down to Ernest Hemingway's house in Key West. Simon, you might find this interesting, but the house was bought. The Hemingway house was bought by Ernest Hemingway's second wife. She had a very rich uncle, and the uncle's last name was Pfeiffer, Pfeiffer, which has now become Pfizer.
Oh,
So
wow.
Pfizer actually helped fund Ernest Hemingway's house down in the Keys back in the day. So I thought that was a pretty cool side story.
So Hemingway's big pharma, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah, the latter part of his life, he was dealing with depression and shock therapy and those sorts of things. So it may have not affected him as well. Maybe they could have helped him a little bit more because I think he needed it.
What was Hemingway's like magnum opus? Like, what was his thing?
Well, I mean, he was a writer, right? And so I find his life more interesting than actually his writing. But he wrote in very short, concise sentences. In fact, like, when you text people, like, you use kind of like text language. He almost sounded like he was using that when he was writing back in the 30s and 40s and stuff like that. But I mean, The Old Man in the Sea is one of his big ones, and then the Mountains of Kilimanjaro. I may be butchering these names, but
For Whom the Bell Tolls, you maybe have heard of that one.
I know that one.
The Sun Also Rises.
A Movable Feast. A lot of these books we used to have to read in English class in high school back in the day. I don't know if you have to do that anymore or not, but
Right. Yeah, and he also was known for something called the iceberg theory, and it's refers to a technique of omitting significant information from a surface narrative, allowing readers to infer the underlying meaning and depth of the story. The approach created a sense of intimacy and emotional impact. So,
Oh, that's interesting.
iceberg theory.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Frank said it better. Frank said it better than I did, but that's kind of like the texting, what I was talking about,
Yep.
right? You like
Simplicity.
just
Yep.
give the people enough so that they can connect their own dots and fill in the blanks with the story.
Yeah. Interesting technique. That was me doing it, but you guys didn't notice because I left a lot of words out.
So instead of
was
saying
connecting
I find that an interesting technique, Frank just
Yeah.
said interesting technique.
interesting
So that's
technique.
Yeah.
we get that from Hemingway.
And
Yeah.
and you guys understood what I said, so that's perfect.
They're
I
a modern
remember having to
Hemingway.
do writing exercises on that because was it Hills Like White Elephants? That was his piece. He wrote that. I think it was a short story, right?
Mhm.
And that was, I think, famous
Mhm.
for that. And we, in one of my classes, had to write our own version, our own story of that to demonstrate.
Wow.
Wow, that stuck with me.
Yeah. We're all influenced by it.
It's a long time ago.
All right, switching gears a little bit. We're going to talk about something I read. James Heath wrote this article. It was on his he's a VC. Wrote an article on his Substack about VC venture capital, and it was basically really interesting from my perspective because it's you've seen the rise of these mega funds, these huge, billion-dollar funds that invest in different startups, and to the point where like to get a return on $1 billion fund is, you need to like return a decacorn, basically, a company that's worth 10 million, right? So if you really want to get your 10x return or whatever. So anyway, it's become really hard to find those huge companies, right? That becomes really, really limiting, and that you're going to probably only want to invest in certain types of companies that are going to get to the point of scale of being like huge, huge, huge companies. And so I think what that's done is made it really harder on the early stage startups and folks that maybe don't have that big of a to begin with that big of a ambition, or not necessarily ambition, just um, potential to go that big, I guess you could say, and while they maybe could, it just may not be something that's on the surface at the beginning. So my point being, small funds is what kind of this article said, was that small funds under, I think it said 30 million, are often outperforming these larger counterparts. So it's a really interesting article and case for being focused and not bloated and not changing the economics of venture. So really saying that microfunds are like the craft beers of venture capital. And that's kind of how we're looking at our stuff with established ventures. So I thought it was really interesting, and maybe I'm reading into it because I like the narrative, but either way, I think it's interesting from the statistics behind it, and thought I'd share it here with y'all.
No, there's definitely a value in being smaller and nimble and able to pivot very quickly rather than holding out for those multi-billion-dollar exits.
Yeah, and just the economics of it, right? To be able to like, to return a $30 million fund at 10x, you don't need, or let's even say 5x, right? You don't need as big of a return as you would if you were trying to return $100 million fund or a $200 million fund, $1 billion fund. Like it's just in magnitude, that's like a huge difference. So I think that's the really interesting thing, and it allows you to have some nice wins that will return investors a better return because that's the other thing. So even the bigger funds are their percentage return back to investors is not as much either. So that's the other difference, is because you've got like it's just really really harder to do. So anyway, worth a read. We'll drop it in the show notes, and you can check it out. All right, so let's see, how are we doing? We are talking about 3D printing. So I found this interesting because there's like a whole change in the way things are going to be built. I think in the future, there's this article about the world's tallest 3D printed building, and it's 98 feet tall, which doesn't seem like that tall when you're talking about skyscrapers, but to 3D print something like that, you've got to have a machine that kind of prints it like 90, 100 feet in the air, right? So it's a machine issue more or less, so that you need to kind of like make sure it can go that high. And but it's interesting to me because it's like so much more efficient than the process of building. If you've ever built a house, like it takes a long time. Like you've got to do all these different components, and here we are. You could with concrete or some other really heavy, hard thing could make like a building relatively quickly, and that's really sustainable and not going to fall over. So I think that's what I took from this, and obviously love the innovation there. And I think more homes could be built that way. And it's just that there's just not the you can't get them. You can't like off the shelf. I'm in Maine. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna 3D print my house. Like that's not something that I can do easily. It's like you have to go find the right person that is in some other area probably that can even bring that and make that possible. So I think that's the thing. It's not available yet, but really cool.
I think that sounds really cool. Something about a 3D printed building sounds a little sketchy, right? Like a little, no, like I'm sure it's super safe, but the idea of stepping into a building that's been printed Makes me a little
Well,
queasy.
it's just they are literally printing concrete. So they're like dropping concrete out of a more or less think of it as like a chute that just like goes around, lets it cure and just like makes the shape. And that's really what it is. So it's no different than a
It's
human
it's
or
it's
like
it's a new manufacturing and fabrication process, right? And we just kind of got stuck with the name 3D printing because that's where it really uh sort of was born, right? But
yeah.
if you look at some of these more advanced 3D printing, like they built a whole, wasn't there like this huge neighborhood that was built in Texas? There was all 3D printed homes. Like
Yes.
if you actually look at those, it's a way more complex fabrication process. And if you look at, I guess, like we've been looking into for my parents, like a prefabbed home. And I'm sure there's components and parts of that, maybe not everywhere, but I'm sure a lot of places, those prefabbed homes, modular homes, parts of them are probably being 3D printed.
Yeah, I mean, and then just I just like the innovation of thinking differently about how to construct a home that could withstand probably more than like a wood home that, most people are used to building like a wood home or whatever, which does take a long time when once you lay the foundation. Think about this as like you're literally laying a foundation for the entire thing. I mean, instead of doing just the foundation, you're like printing the whole thing that way. Another company that's kind of doing similar, but not with 3D printing is that Comfort Block company. I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but it's basically a company that's using like this special interlocking set of like big old concrete blocks, I guess you could say, and the way that they're like meshed together with concrete to build homes more efficiently. So again, that's not going to do it in 24 hours or whatever, but it's still going to be really solid and energy efficient and whatnot. So I like it from that perspective. I think it's I like the idea of thinking differently about how we build these things. And again, I don't know how these are going to look. They might just look like little huts because they're made out of concrete. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's
So,
what they're saying. The future of construction on if we go to Mars or if we go to the moon is, because we can't, it's hard to take payloads that carry all of that construction material up there. So we're going to be 3D printing on the buildings up on the moon or on Mars when we get up there.
yeah. And they're doing some of this, like the Air Force is doing some of this stuff right now. Like, I went and saw a couple, like last fall, I saw a company that was doing it with concrete, and they were doing it for like when they go into a location, they can bring a printer, which still is not small, it's like on a truck, but they can like roll it out and print instead of printing like, or sorry, instead of setting up tents, they can set up these little huts made out of concrete that are more protective and also cooler because they're like doing this in like deserts and stuff, and it's a great way to kind of be able to do that without you know, the tents, which are, obviously not great when you're in like 150 degrees outside or whatever. So it's kind of interesting that it's already being applied. It's now just how do you scale that and who's doing it locally? Have you all seen anything locally about this? Like there's nobody I know that's 3D printing houses other than in Texas where we hear about it all the time.
Yeah, I feel like Texas is always up to some weird stuff with their neighborhoods and their houses. I think like we talked about Elon's like own little kingdom a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, yeah, and they have more land, right? The more I guess land out there is big. Texas is huge, and yeah, I think there's also things about like the housing costs and things like this could help solve some of the housing crisis that we have. If people don't have homes, right? So you 3D printing homes in different areas, like gives people a place to live at least. So
In many parts of the world, or think about after a natural disaster and how quickly could you get up a bunch of
yeah,
safe, warm, potentially, options. So yeah, it could be
yeah,
it all. Yeah, there's so many dependencies.
yeah. Totally. All right, so we're almost out of time. We're gonna wrap here soon in a second, but I want to get a couple more things I want to talk about. Do you guys want to talk about mushrooms? I know John loves mushroom stuff, but I don't know. This is a Maine mushroom story.
It's interesting. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. It's not coffee this time. We're not talking about mushroom
Mm.
coffee, which I love to drink that stuff. Oh, it's so good, Johnny. I had some this morning. It's still lingering in my brain. So this is about mushroom. The first mushroom casket was built, created. I don't know if you want to call it built, created, grown, whatever, in the U.S. and it was built, made in Maine, and it's actually going to be for a burial in rural Maine. And not to be sound depressing, I just thought it was interesting because they're using mushrooms for coffins in the U.S. because it's biodegradable, it's can decompose the body and absorbs toxins, and it kind of reflects the origin of kind of the burial practice back in the day. So I thought it was interesting. I thought it was all of a sudden it caught my attention because I like mushrooms and I live in Maine, and then I realized what they were doing and thought, well, that's interesting. Another approach to doing burials and whatnot. So I don't know. Worth a read if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Here's my question. I thought casks were biodegradable anyways. Like I thought the wood would just like break down at some point. So maybe I'm confused here, but I always thought they already were biodegradable.
Hmm. I
And
don't
any
know.
thoughts?
Well, they usually put the cat. I mean, technically everything's biodegradable at some point, 1,000 years, for example, but they lower caskets into a cement tomb usually.
No.
Yeah.
So that I don't not that I know a lot about this or anything, but I've just been to a few funerals and seen it. But
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, mushrooms grow on decaying flesh and tissue, right? So, I mean, if you build the coffin around that and the body just gets decomposed by the mushroom, I mean, faster, it makes sense to me.
Right. There are biodegradable coffins. You're right, John. Most of the time it's the tomb and all that. And I was always thinking about the TV shows where they're trying to rob graves and stuff like that, and they're, you
Uh-huh.
know, somehow they're still fully intact, right? And all that. So anyway, so that's kind of a different take and something to think about, I guess, if you're looking into that stuff. So, all right, on a higher note, let's talk about what we're watching, listening to, eating, trying, whatever, reading, if you have time for that. Who wants to go first? How about Johnny? You've been watching something on Netflix?
Yeah, I've been watching Tires, the new Shane Gillis show on, not new, it's the second season of it. It's hilarious.
Hmm.
It's kind of like just mind, I don't know, just comedy, just kind of pointless comedy, but it's pretty funny, and there's a lot of big cameos in there as well. So definitely recommend it. It's not politically correct though by any means. So putting that disclaimer out there, if you're looking for something like that, don't watch Tires. But if you want to put on something
I
to
watched
just
this
laugh.
Saturday Night Live. He was pretty funny, actually.
Oh,
Or
he's really funny, and he's actually kind of I want to say like apolitical. I'm sure that people think he doesn't matter, but anyways, the point is it's just kind of mindless humor, and so give it a watch if you want to just laugh, a good laugh.
he's also got a stand-up like special, I think, on Netflix too, which is funny. So
Yeah.
lots of good stuff there. All right. Jen, you're gonna watch something, you haven't had time to watch anything, but you've been reading. What's going on?
Yeah, let's see. So first, I'm everyone's been telling me to watch Sirens, so Sirens is at the top of my list. But I will just mention if anyone wants a short watch, if you like TED Talks, someone just sent it to me and I watched it a couple days ago and I loved it so much. It was very short. It was a TED Talk by Amy McNee. And it was all about how everyone really needs to create art, some art, whether it's music or writing or creative arts, other creative arts, and how it's a true act of kindness and rebellion and hope for the entire world, and it's a must. So it's a beautiful TED Talk. Loved it. I would encourage everyone to watch it. And I'm still reading Taste. That's the book by Stanley Tucci. He did a year, this sort of journal of everything he ate and enjoyed in a year, and it's awesome. I've been reading it very, very slowly and truly trying to savor it.
It's like eating it. That's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm listening to one other thing. I'll put this out here. My friend Rick Robinson, his kiddo, Alden, his music on Spotify has passed over 60 million
Wow.
streams. That's
Yeah,
pretty amazing. And so I
it is
just
pretty
started
amazing.
listening to it, and it's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. We should drop a link in the show notes too. It's like a cross between like I would say like 21 Pilotsy kind of stuff, but it's more like a little more electronic, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, very cool. Very cool. We know that's not easy to do, right? Okay, so let's see, Simon, do you have anything? Oh, actually, I'll go really quick. I've been reading a book that's similar to what Jen just said, The Creative Act by Way of Being by Rick Rubin. It's worth a read if you haven't seen it or looked at it. It's a big, if you look, you've probably seen it around. It's like the cover is like a circle with a dot in it. So you might have seen that around. But that's really good. And I was on a bunch of planes. I watched this show called Young Werther, and I'm still trying. I think it's about, if I was to give stars, I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. Um, it was okay. It was interesting. Kept my attention for a little while I was trying to like also probably multitask on an airplane last week. All right, Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm watching on Netflix that Ocean Gate Titan submersible documentary that came out recently. And oh my goodness, they were freeballing this entire thing, which is horrifying. And they drove the submarine with like an Xbox controller that I have in my room. Pretty crazy. So watching that, enjoying it, not reading anything because I'm a very slow reader, but I would like to get faster at it. And listening to the soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar, like the musical. Weirdly into that right now. So kind of a strange, eclectic things I'm doing right now.
And
That's
Simon, is Ocean Gate the one that imploded?
Yeah, like super, yeah, super imploded.
Oh man.
I know. I think in I might do it if it was by a reputable company, not using like an Xbox controller. I think I would go down if I had a bajillion dollars.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if I could do it. But I have to check that out. Yeah, that whole thing was just really crazy what they did. But all right. So you just reminded me though, Simon, about the reading thing. Do audiobooks. You can do audiobooks on Audible or whatever. Or like I found this book this last summer. I don't have it's up here somewhere behind me. And it's basically it was like a book that had like the each like little it was like different short stories and stories were like 1 to 2 pages and it's perfect if you have a child
Yeah.
or you don't read a lot fast because I'm both, right? And so because I could never finish a book, like an actual book. So that's why I do a lot of audiobooks. But anyway, it allowed me to actually feel success, like, oh my gosh, I got a chapter done because it was only a page.
Yeah.
And
Not to be that guy, but does it count as reading?
oh, it counts. I'll tell the name of the book is Moose Memoirs and Lobster Tales. It was all about short stories from Maine. Totally
Okay.
counts. Learned a
That's the
lot.
most main sounding thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Simon, I've been reading Taste since Christmas. And literally I'll read, because each chapter, they're not even chapters. It's like a journal. So it's like a date, like, this date, this is what he did. And I'll read like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 dates and then I put it and I go to sleep. It's just,
There you go.
it still counts.
That counts. You're right. That counts. I do the thing where I have to put my finger. No, okay, not actually, but basically, I have to like put my finger up to the line, like how your dad or mom taught you to read when you were a kid.
Yeah, right. Come on now.
I know. I
Uh,
was kidding.
Awesome.
I know. All right, so testing 1, 2, 3, and then we'll kind of wrap. Does anybody testing anything?
My Aura, I know you've been testing yours for a long time. Mine is
Oh yeah.
much newer. And I gotta say, I was such a skeptic. I was giving Frank a hard time for a while. And now I love waking up and going to my Aura report to see like how was my sleep? How often did I wake up? What was my breathing like? Checking out at the end of the day, like how is my activity, my heart rate, just all this stuff. And it's the way that they package it all up and the way that they help you understand your stress and your readiness levels and all that is really compelling. So I've got to say I'm really enjoying it.
That's great to hear.
Thanks, Frank.
I've been wearing mine for a while. I feel similar. Although the one that's so tough is when you know you didn't sleep well and it's going to impact like your overall like optimal like level of like performance or whatever. You're kind of like, oh,
Yeah, like I knew the day after the bachelorette party, I was just like, oh, I gotta look at it. And it was just like, what happened?
yeah, yeah.
Life.
Yeah, I mean, also, I mean, I've been not drinking alcohol for now about 6 months, and um, that kind of leads into what I've been testing. But it also, when I haven't used the Oura Ring with any consumption of alcohol. I'd love to see how that impacts like the things that are in there, like all the different levels and whatnot. So that'll be kind of interesting. But that's going to my what I've been testing. I tried an Allagash hop water this weekend, and it was interesting. I'm looking for non-alcoholic alternatives to when you're at like a restaurant, bar, or whatever. And Allagash hop water is pretty good. It comes in a can, so it kind of feels like you're actually getting a adult beverage, and it basically is like it's basically like seltzer water with like a lemony kind of or sorry, orange kind of flavorish to it because that's kind of like it's like an orange peel or something like that. So I don't know, Jen, you tried it too. Did you like it?
Um, I did. I thought it was good. I don't know if I liked it enough to order it. Like I think maybe if I saw it out and about and I really wanted something other than just plain water, I might get it. But
Mhm. Yeah.
it wasn't.
My go-to cocktail now, especially out and about, because I've been to a bunch of different things lately, is a soda, club soda with lime and either pineapple or grapefruit juice. That's my go-to because you kind of feel like, okay, I got to get something, but I'm not going to get like you know,
Mocktail.
that's my mocktail like on the go. So that's kind of my new one. But it was kind of good. I mean, again, it tastes a lot like a seltzer water, maybe a little more like a light beer than a seltzer water though. I think it's got a little bit more of that bite to it or whatever than a regular like LaCroix or whatever. So worth a taste if you like that kind of stuff. And there's zero alcohol, zero gluten. It's basically water. All right. Simon, Johnny, what are you guys all testing? Anything?
Not really testing anything, but I will tell you though, Frank, now that we're talking about it, the Heineken Zero,
Yeah.
0% alcohol, is actually the best tasting non-alcoholic beer that I've ever had.
Okay.
So if you ever get a chance, the Heineken Zero is pretty good.
So my catch is I don't do gluten either. So I can't.
Well, I don't think it has gluten in it.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Let me look.
I bet it does.
I'm not sure gluten's a real thing, guys. I don't think anyone can actually tell me what gluten is besides like
It's
what is
it's wheat.
Oh, it's not gluten-free, Frank. You're right.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem with beer. All beer is gluten filled, except for my friend over at Orange Bike Brewing in Portland, Maine. They are making a gluten-free, alcohol-free beer, and I go there sometimes just to get it.
Nice.
It tastes like a regular beer. It tastes really good, and it kind of tastes like like the kind of beers that I used to drink. So yeah, that's good though. I'm glad they have some of those first like non-alcoholic beers and stuff were pretty horrendous. So glad to hear that they've upped their game collectively. I know athletics is a big deal too, right? Like you have those, I know a friend of mine has been really on those. So anyway, all right, Simon, we're gonna stop talking about beer. What are you up to?
well, I'm not, this is more of like a thing I'm going to test in the future. I think I'm going to try to learn how to cut my own hair. I went to the hair cutter yesterday and very nice man I've been going to for years. He like pretty clearly cut the back of my neck with the razor. And then wouldn't tell me, but I could tell throughout the rest of the haircut, he kept like really harshly pressing a towel down there and like muttering to his colleague and stuff. So I think I'm over that. And I think I'm going to cut my own hair, and I don't really have nice hair and it's all falling out anyways. So I'm going to try it.
So was it bleeding?
Yeah, like a little bit. Like obviously not that bad, but it's something about him just cutting me with the razor and then not telling me seemed not very chill. So
Mhm.
I no longer trust Ed, fortunately.
Oh, poor Ed.
No, sorry,
Well,
Ed.
so you're gonna end up with like I mean I did COVID, I did a lot of that hair cutting myself, and I don't know, John, you saw it. Did it turn out okay, or was it? I don't know. It seemed
You
like
look good.
on top
I
it was
cut
a
my
little. You
It
cut
my
your
was
mother-in-law cut my hair during COVID, and I think it looked okay. But yeah, your hair looked great, Frank.
the
well.
hardest part. I know you would have me help in the back, the very back, like the neck, because that is the hard part. So
Yeah.
Can't
if you
see.
had the right mirror set up, you might be able to do it.
Could I do sort of a
That's the hardest
around?
part. You almost need
Yeah, but
like
you have to see, you have to be able to
Kobe.
see it like
yeah.
really well.
You almost need
Yeah.
like a selfie stick to get the back. It's like too hard. I
I
don't
might
know.
just go buzz cut. I'm kind of over it. I've never had.
Put on a 3 guard and do the whole thing.
Yeah, just
I think
the
you
whole
could
thing.
do that,
Yeah.
Simon.
Yeah,
I
maybe I'll
I
look
think I could
athletic.
pull that off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be nice. Could be nice.
Yeah. And cooler for the summer. All right. So final thoughts here. All right. So I don't know if you saw the story or not, but Rod Stewart, big fans of Rod Stewart here. He wants to break the 100-meter record at age 80. So singer-songwriter Rod Stewart has been training for this. And as our final thought, I thought it was kind of interesting to reinforce the idea that you're never too old to try something different and new, and it's new and surprising and somewhat quirky. I think it's a great idea. It's funny. I've been like, I swim a lot. And I've been thinking, gosh, eventually when I'm older, I might swim in the Olympics. And like if you're 80, like, yeah, if you could still do that, that's pretty
Do they
impressive.
do they have like an elder Olympics?
I don't know. They must. He wants to break the record. So yeah, I think they do like races and stuff in certain places. So there's a whole community of people that like to push it.
The old Olympics.
I don't know. I kind of feel like they maybe should have it like at the same time as the regular Olympics. It's going to be like a smaller field, right, of people that are doing this, right? There's not a ton of people training into their 80s. But I also saw a stat recently, like most people past 40 don't run sprints. Like they don't sprint like at all, ever. Like think about it. When was the last time you did a sprint? So,
I
yeah.
do it once in a while just to feel like I'll be finishing a run.
Yeah.
Or like at some point in a run, and I am not a big runner. Like it takes a lot for me to get myself like maybe once a week but really my like going for a run is like half run, half walk. But every once in a while I throw a sprint in there just for a good measure. Or if we're at the beach with like the pup, like go for a sprint just to see. And it never feels really good anymore. But I still feel proud of myself. So go Rod. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really a nice thought. So if he's, sprinting towards 80, chasing the world record, I think we can do something really big this week. So get out there and do it. Get on that next Zoom call. Maybe you can crush it, or maybe start sprinting more. I think it's the other thing. Either way, thanks so much for listening to the Somewhat Frank podcast. Hope you had a great listen, and thanks for coming. We'll do another one here soon. Thanks for listening to the Somewhat Frank podcast. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and leave us a review. We love the feedback and are grateful to have you as a listener. Have a great day.